What the hell did I just watch? This is your Sound Off Extra review for the final Monday Night Raw of 2019. From the XL Center in Hartford, Connecticut, the scene of the crime. The final Monday Night Raw of the decade. And a show that gave 2018 Monday Night Raw a run for its money as the worst show on television. Talking about 2019 Raw in general. This was the night of the big Bobby Lashley, Lana wedding. Wedding bells were ringing. So are my ears. Wrestling weddings usually are good for ratings, so it would not surprise me if Raw is up this week because of this segment. And I was hopeful that a wedding angle meant the end of this dumb storyline in some way, whatever the payoff was. But it appears that it is going to continue well into the new year. And we all have Vince McMahon and Paul Heyman to thank for that. Oh yes, don't think I forgot about Paul Heyman in all of this, because that last segment had ECW written all over it, and not in a good way. I am sick as a dog. If I sound like it, that's why I sound that way. I just got over a head cold from hell about a week ago, and then I was around a bunch of little kids over Christmas who all had colds. I didn't stand a chance. Yeah, it's like if one person has a cold, it's like, all right, I'll stay away from that child. I'll stay away from that person. When 4 of them have colds, you're pretty much a dead duck. I thought you weren't supposed to be able to get sick again so soon after being sick. I guess that was a myth. I wish this show was a myth. And that it wasn't real, but it was. Oh, it was very real. First, I'm going to get to the good parts that I liked, because there were some good things on this show. I'm not going to come on here and sound like a sourpuss, and everything was terrible, everything was horrible, it was the worst Raw of the year. It wasn't. There were some good things on this show. Kevin Owens opened the show. He's charging after Seth Rollins and AOP. He gets overwhelmed in the ring until angry Samoa Joe makes the babyface save. I thought that was good stuff. It's good to see Joe back in action. Although commentary now suffers for it. But I was glad to see him back in action here. He got Rollins in the coquina clutch. AOP broke it up. Owens grabbed a chair. Security broke things up. Owens wiped out everybody with a senton out to the floor. Backstage, Owens told Joe, we've known each other for a long time. And he's known a lot of bad people. Some of whom booked this show. But none as bad as Joe. And he meant that as a compliment. The security tried to escort them out, and Joe had a great line in here. He said if anybody touched him, they wouldn't be able to feel with their fingers anymore. I said last week I'd be down for a Joe and Owens alliance against Seth and AOP, and now we're getting it, and I think that's great. We had the rematch from TLC between Aleister Black and Buddy Murphy. It was exactly as advertised, a very good match. Similar to their pay-per-view match, Black beat him with not 1 but 2 Black Mass kicks. Aleister Black has been protected more than most since coming to the main roster. I believe he's unbeaten since coming to Raw a few months ago. I'm not talking about that run with Ricochet earlier in the year. I'm talking about since he's been looking for somebody to pick a fight with him. And he's been sitting in a closet for a few months and then finally started wrestling. I believe he's been undefeated. Now, they could have had Murphy roll him up. WWE style, go 50-50 with things, and they didn't. He beat Murphy at the pay-per-view. He came here on Raw, and he beat Murphy again. They've made it very clear who the better man is in this feud. They have gone in strong on Aleister Black, as they should, because he's going to be a top player for them in 2020. Charlotte comes out. She cuts an awful, rambling promo, entering herself into the Women's Royal Rumble match. Took her 10 minutes to say what she could have said in 2. And then she says, I got my boots on, I'll wrestle anybody in the back. And then Natalia's music hit, and I groaned. And then my hacking cough kicked in. But then they went and they had a pretty good match. And Charlotte tapped her out in the figure 8. The thing about these two have pretty good chemistry together. It goes all the way back to their NXT Women's Championship match in 2014 when Charlotte beat Natty to win the title. This was after Paige was stripped because she had gone to the main roster and she won the Divas title. And I think JBL was the general manager at the time, and so he stripped her of the title and they had a tournament. and Charlotte beat Natty for it in the finals, and that was an excellent match. So going all the way back 5 years, they've had good chemistry together. The problem is, I just cannot bring myself to care about anything that Natty does. From the moment her music hits to the time that she walks to the back, I just don't care. And I don't know if part of it is just that she's been there so long. She's faced everybody there is to face. I mean, what is there to be excited about? Nothing. Plus, they sent the Geek Squad out in the middle of the match to chase R-Truth around the ring for the 24/7 title, just so Charlotte could give Eric Young a boot to the face. Eric Young, who I keep forgetting even has a job in this company, and I don't even know why he does. But she boots him in the face. You know, I gave praise on my show on Sunday. I said I liked what they did with R-Truth and Tozawa in New York City last week when they went on location and they filmed some funny stuff with the 24/7, because I'm over the 24/7 title. I have been over this title for months. It is played out. It has jumped 15 sharks. I enjoyed what they did last week. I thought it was cute. I thought it was kind of funny. I like it when they leave the building and they go on location sometimes like that. This week it was right back to the same lame bullshit where they run in circles and they chase them into the crowd just so they can transition into a commercial break. Uncreative, unimaginative bullshit that, you know what, I suppose fits in well on a show that ended the way that this one did. Becky Lynch against Asuka is official for the Raw Women's Championship at the Royal Rumble, which they didn't really do much this week. I mean, they had Becky there to announce the match and make it official. There was nothing new with her and Asuka. We knew this match was going to happen anyway. I'm glad it's happening. It was ridiculous the way that they just completely forgot that Asuka not only beat Becky at the Rumble last year, but tapped her out. Should have been her first feud coming out of WrestleMania. Realistically, I mean, I understand that Asuka probably would have lost. And in hindsight now, they get a big Royal Rumble rematch out of it, but there's no way they had that planned. Supposedly Heyman is the one who wanted to go back, and I'll give Heyman credit for that. If he's the one responsible for coming back around to this feud, good on him. Because it was ridiculous that Asuka wouldn't go on TV and speak up and say, hey, the woman who went to WrestleMania and won the championship, guess what? Becky 2 belts, guess what? I beat her at the Royal Rumble. I should be next in line for a title shot. So at least we're getting it now. At least we're getting it now. Randy Orton. Randy Orton was injured at a live event on Sunday night in Hershey, Pennsylvania, while he was wrestling AJ Styles. He went down with a leg injury. They stopped the match. So on Raw, Orton walked out on crutches. He had to be helped into the ring for a promo where he was acting like he may have to retire. This is such a gruesome leg injury that he may have to call it quits. Up to that point, they had me fooled. I thought it might be a legitimate injury. Now, I wasn't following along with all the news reports during the day. In fact, I didn't read anything. Outside of the injury report on Sunday night, I did not read anything about the Orton stuff during the day on Monday. So maybe there was something said that, led most people to know, it's all a work, it's all an angle. All I had to go on was the fact that, hey, there's some fan cam footage online that Orton got hurt and they had to stop the match. And usually when they have to stop the match and you don't give the people what they paid for, that's not usually something that is shot as an angle. So they had me fooled up until the point that Orton said I might have to retire. Once he said that, I knew. Once he said that, I knew. That gave it away. But I will give Orton credit here. He was rambling like he didn't know what to say. He was all dejected. And then he admitted, he said, look, I'm rambling, guys. Here's what happened. And he talked about he felt a pop in his knee and everything else. He said he's going to be gone a long time. He said he's seen champions have to stand in this ring and surrender their titles due to injury. Hell, one of the few men he respects, Edge, had to give up his whole frickin' career. And I thought that was an interesting little name drop there. Edge was the only name he singled out, by the way. It was interesting. He promised to do what he could to make sure that somebody got RKO'd at WrestleMania. That brought out AJ Styles, who mocked him. He said that he would wait until WrestleMania, put him in the calf crusher, and retire him for good. And then he kicked one of Orton's crutches out from underneath him, and he's damn lucky that thing didn't go flying into the crowd, because it was a good kick, too. The only thing that saved that thing from going into the crowd were the ropes. I thought that thing was going flying. So he kicked the crutch out from underneath Orton's arm. Orton said, there's one difference between you and I. You're a patient man. And he said, me, I'm not. And then he gave AJ an RKO. And he revealed that, in fact, there is no leg injury. His leg is just fine. I will say, that's an awful lot of trouble to go through just to deliver an RKO to a man that he was already in the middle of a match with the night before when he faked the injury in the first place. He could have given him an RKO then. But he chose to walk around all day with crutches and hope, put in kayfabe mode here, and hope that AJ would just walk out to confront him. Only for him to surprise him with an RKO. That's a lot of effort to put into something so ridiculous. I like the segment. I actually like the little swerve they did here, but I'm just saying it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Andrade pinned Ricochet after Zelina Vega pushed Ricochet off the top rope. The match was fine. The real story here is what Zelina was wearing. Oh my goodness. I hope she wears that every week. The hell with the match. They should have just had a camera position outside the ring for the entire match, just aimed at her. Good Lord. So see, I did enjoy some things on this show. Probably Zelina being the most important. So it wasn't like the worst Raw of all time that we got last November. Okay, and I still say to this day, that's not hyperbole. You want to hear about the worst Monday Night Raw of all time? You can find the video review on this YouTube channel from November of last year. Was it November 26th? I think that date still sticks in my head. This was not as bad as that show. That was a show that was an embarrassment far beyond anything I had ever seen before. But this last segment was the worst all year. Not only was it bad, we've gotten some bad segments, but it never ended. Like, if you have a bad 5 or 10 minute segment, it's 5 or 10 minutes. This segment went on forever. Now, I fell asleep last night. I only watched it this morning. I did go back and I watched everything I missed. I fell asleep in the middle of the show. So I went back and I wake up this morning and I didn't see any spoilers about how the segment ended. I just saw the #1 trend. I don't know if this was nationally. I don't know if this was just in New York. But the #1 trend on Twitter, or one of them, was Katie Vick. As soon as I saw that, I said, oh no. And I will say before I even get into this segment, as somebody who lived through Katie Vick, and I'm sure many of you did as well, and there were probably an equal number of people listening to this right now who either weren't watching wrestling at the time, or are too young to remember that segment. It was 2002. I mean, we're talking almost 20 years, so it was a long time ago. But as somebody who lived through Katie Vick and remembers it well, let's not get carried away here. This was not as bad as Katie Vick. Katie Vick was something that played out over the course of a few weeks. You had the initial reveal. You had the segment with Triple H in the ring with the mannequin. You had, of course, the infamous funeral parlor segment with the casket. I will not regale you in what happened there. So let's not get too carried away here. But the fact that Katie Vick was trending, and I did have one person tweet me saying that it wasn't in relation to the show. There was some kind of podcast interview with someone about Katie Vick. I don't buy that. Every tweet I'm looking at that had Katie Vick in it had to do with this fucking show. When you see Katie Vick trending on Twitter, that's a bad sign. So I already knew going into this that this was going to be a dandy of a segment. And I didn't know. I had people tell me the show ended at 11:10 p.m. Usually they have a hard stop now at 11. They don't let them go overtime anymore. So if that's true, that means they had to get advance permission from USA Network to run 10 minutes overtime for this steaming pile of rhinoceros shit. They had to get special permission for this. Think about that. Now, I understand that some people like segments like this. These are probably the same people that enjoy watching car crashes on the highway, that enjoy watching reruns of Jerry Springer and Maury Povich. I'm a Steve Wilkos guy myself on those rare occasions when I do watch shows like that. That guy doesn't take any shit. But when I'm done watching it, on those rare occasions when I do tune in to Steve Wilkos, I feel like I have to take a shower. I sometimes watch this channel. It's called Nosy or Nosy TV. It's on the Pluto TV app on my phone. Channel 158, FYI, if you're interested. It's all free. Because somebody told me it has old reruns. That channel has old reruns of Blind Date, back when Roger Lodge used to host the show. And that was always, that show was a guilty pleasure of mine. So I would tune into Channel 158 here on Pluto from time to time, and but they'd have Jerry Springer, and they'd have Maury, and they'd have all this other garbage on before I could even get to Blind Date. So anyway, that's why I am reminded of shows like that. Some people like that. And that's okay. You do you. When WWE tries to copy that stuff, it is almost always pure cringe. Like the Bella Twins segment with Jerry Springer. I wish this segment had died in the womb. Segment starts. We have fucking Bill Belichick in the ring for some reason officiating this ceremony. He did as good of a job keeping things in order here as he did in that loss to the Dolphins on Sunday. They had empty chairs on stage because nobody accepted their wedding invitations. Apparently, Lana has no family. Lashley has no family. Nobody else likes them. You know what I enjoyed? A little sidebar here. And no, it was not this segment. But when I think about segments like this that WWE has done, and there have been a ton of weddings, and some are hit and some are miss. But you know what I enjoyed? I enjoyed when Teddy Long got married to Crystal Marshall on SmackDown. That was funny. That, I felt, was a well-done segment. He had the Godfather come out to remind Teddy of all the good times they had. They forced all the roster members to attend, so all the wrestlers were lined up in chairs in the aisleway. CM Punk is out there in a suit. Vince McMahon was sitting in the front row trying to get Hornswoggle to behave. He kept fucking around with Coachman. I remember laughing at that. I think they even had, what was her name? Brooke Tessmacher from TNA before her TNA days. I think she was there as one of the maids of honor. I remember seeing her in there. Fucking IRS and Sergeant Slaughter were out there as guests. Patterson and Briscoe. They can be entertaining with these things when they want to be. The Billy and Chuck wedding angle, which was really well done and served a purpose at least. That was actually a major angle that they shot. That's one of the best angles they ever did on SmackDown. This right here was not one of those times. Lashley's out there. He's wearing a sleeveless tuxedo. Lana comes out. They cut to commercial. Here in the middle of this wedding. They come back. Lana's yelling. Lana is yelling some more. She demands that Bill Belichick read from the script that she provided to him. She said the greatest gift that Lashley could ever give himself was her. She jumped on Lashley. The two of them started making out. Her makeup was all, I don't know what was going on. Her makeup was all messed up now. It was all smudged. She looked like she had some horrible facial tan. Lashley told her to wipe her teeth. This was a mess. She said it took her a long time to write Lashley's vowels for him. That's what she called them. She thinks she's Vanna White, apparently. Lashley proceeded to botch his own vowels. The acting here. Holy shit. I've seen better acting in porn than we saw here. They exchanged rings. Bill Belichick said, if there's anyone who sees any reason these two should not be married, speak now or forever hold your peace. And out walked Tom Brady. No. Out walked a random independent wrestler claiming to be Lana's first husband. And she left him for that son of a bitch, Rusev. And then she left that son of a bitch for this son of a bitch. And so Lashley chokeslammed him. So then out next was Carissa Rivera. See, I'm old enough to remember when she and Chris Statlander wrestled as the Brooklyn Bells against the Iconics on an episode of SmackDown earlier this year. I remember that because I'm a Brooklyn boy, so I remember the Brooklyn Bells. But tonight, she was Bobby Lashley's first wife. And this is the part of the segment where it gets so, some people will say, oh, it's meant to be goofy. This is the part of the segment where they trot these people out. And it's just, oh, God, I couldn't stand this. This was just, She says they met while he was in the military. He'd probably wish he was back on the battlefield, I would say, last night. He'd have an easier time dodging enemy fire than he would getting through this segment. Lana slapped her, and that was the end of her. And then out came Liv Morgan. The same Liv Morgan, who I've been asking for months, where's Liv Morgan? They were doing a character change with her, and we haven't seen her since July. Where's Liv Morgan? And then suddenly we start seeing these vignettes on television promoting the return of Liv Morgan. She's been taking a bubble bath for the last 4 weeks. I'm surprised her skin wasn't all pruned up when she walked out here. She's been taking a bath the last few weeks. Well, this was her grand return. She finally came back, and this was their idea for her. And she's teasing, no, I can't allow this to happen, and she's teasing that the love of her life is in the ring, and then we find out it's not Lashley. It's Lana. Lana was nearly in tears as Liv was asking her, you're not in love with him? What are you doing here? And then finally, Lana attacked Liv, and the two of them rolled around on the mat like it was ECW in 1996. The only thing missing was Joey Styles screaming catfight on commentary. Hot lesbian action has returned to Monday Night Raw. Now, if this scenario sounds familiar to you, it's because I just pitched this idea on Sunday's podcast, but not for this. This was not what I had in mind when I pitched the idea on Sunday. I pitched it as an eventual payoff to an Otis-Mandy Rose wedding with Sonya Deville in the role that Liv Morgan had here. See, the difference is that that's a story that has already been teased before on WWE television. And would actually make storyline sense if Sonya Deville was to come out and stop some kind of union, as rare as it would be for to even think of Mandy Rose marrying Otis, but just bear with me here. But the idea would be that Sonya can't allow this to happen, not because she's interested in Otis, but because she's got a thing for Mandy, and she can hide her feelings no more. They took that idea, not from me, I'm sure, but they took that idea, and instead, they used it here, for this shitty angle. Way to go, you schmucks. Can't use it now. This was done for... As opposed to what I just pitched, at least, where I tried to make some sense of it. It ties into an ongoing story on SmackDown. This was just done for shock value. Plain and simple. That's all they did this for, just for shock value. And it makes me wonder if this was even their original plan for Liv Morgan's return, or if somewhere along the way Paul Heyman said, hey, I've got a great idea to swerve everybody. This show swerved right off the edge of a cliff with this segment. Lana tried to resume the ceremony after Liv got carried off when all of a sudden Rusev pops up out of the cake and he attacks Lashley. And then Liv comes back and she threw Lana into the cake to end the show and end this decade in disgrace. Think about this. They began the decade in WWE with Bret Hart returning after 12 years away, confronting Shawn Michaels in the middle of the ring. And they end the decade with a segment that would probably drive Bret away for another 12 years. And I don't think anybody would blame him. Here's my other question. Why would Rusev even care? Why would he be upset? Didn't he get his divorce from Lana already? Didn't he actually get the divorce during the segment? Was he not out there last week celebrating his new bachelor life? He seemed to be the happiest guy in the world to be away from this woman. That's Bobby's problem now. I mean, why would he care? Why would he care enough to hide inside this cake and subject himself to 20 minutes of this shit? What must he have been thinking, standing in that cake? Just to pop out and beat up Lashley some more? It's like, the best revenge he could get is to let him marry her. Let the wedding go through. Is that not punishment enough? Next Monday, Brock Lesnar is back. Although he may be having second thoughts after watching this segment. As if he watches this show. Give me a break. Rey Mysterio gets a rematch for the United States title against Andrade. And the Viking Raiders will defend the Raw Tag Team titles against Gallows and Anderson and the Street Profits. And I would sit here and tell you that it's a chance for a fresh start with a new year, a new decade. But I said the same thing last year after the worst year in Monday Night Raw history, and they followed that up with probably the second worst year in Monday Night Raw history. Thank God for Wrestle Kingdom this weekend. I'll see you guys next year.